Welcome aboard, laddies. Welcome aboard, laddies, to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Today is Monday, June 18th. Get on board. What's going on, everybody? It's a Handmade episode today, and those are some of your favorites, judging by the emails that I have gotten from you, and that's pretty cool because I love doing the Handmade episodes. I love finding people that live outside the box, that work for themselves, that make stuff with their hands. It's just a forgotten time. It's a forgotten time, mate. I'm talking all wacky because I was just listening to the guest today. My guest today is Fil SoloDallas. If you don't know who that is, Phil is the owner of the SoloDallas company. What is the SoloDallas company, you ask? Well, Phil is an AC/DC freak, grew up in Italy, and an absolute crusher guitar player, amazing human. But what he did many years ago was become infatuated with Angus Young's guitar tone, Mr. Angus Young from AC/DC. And he was so obsessed with it that he wanted to obtain the ultimate guitar tone that he heard on the Back in Black record, and he wanted to find out how you could do that. So what did he do? He bought an SG and a Marshall, and it didn't sound like Back in Black, and he did not know why, and he ran down that rabbit hole. And once he found out how Angus got that tone, he obsessed with it and created stuff to where you could get that tone. Now, maybe you don't know anything about guitar. You're like, what's tone? What the hell are you talking about? This is going to be an episode for you because we really dig deep into the nuttiness of guitar tone. Guitar tone is basically what makes a guitar player have his signature sound. Guitar players, great ones throughout the years, Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Angus Young, they all have their signature sound and their tone. And it's stuff that guitar players can lose their mind over, searching for the ultimate tone. It's some nerdy shit, but let me give you an example. If a guitar player has bad tone, he could be the best guitar player ever, but for some reason you're like, ugh, I don't like this guy at all. He sounds like shit. Maybe his tone is too high-endy. Sounds like ice picks hitting your eardrum. Nothing worse than that, the ice pick tone. Anyway, my point is every guitar player searches for tone, just like every comedian searches for the ultimate jokes. It's an obsession. And thank God Phil did it because he found out what Angus was doing and what he was using, and he recreated that, and he sells it now. He sells his own handmade amplifiers. He sells his own pedals, and he also tours around playing AC/DC music, celebrating it. Not only that, but he has one of the best amplifier collections I've ever seen, and he brought them all down for our Bon Scott tribute, which made the show even that more magical to have these stacks of Marshalls up on the stage that he owned. It's just amazing what a Marshall amp does. It creates the ultimate rock and roll sound, and it's definitely a Hall of Famer. Definitely part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I believe. If it's not, that's absurd, but every great concert I saw growing up and responsible for my right ear pretty much not working much was all powered by Marshall amps. Marshall amps are the sound of rock. You don't get to hear them that much anymore because concerts are just so different. Most people are using little combos. Most people are playing small venues where you can't turn a Marshall up. A Marshall turned up is so mind-boggling. If you're next to it, you're like, whoa, man, that thing's fucking loud. It's like a supersonic jet flying by you. But it also gives you the fucking stiff one. You're like, that is rock right there. It was amazing to have Phil on, and I call him a friend now, which is amazing to have him as a friend, and I look forward to, over the years, doing some more cool stuff with him. That being said, I'll get to the episode here in a minute. Just want to give you a couple announcements. Special shout out to that JJ French episode last week. Incredible man. It was great to have him on, and still very, very happy to have him on. If you want to donate to Patreon, it's patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. And some people did this week. Let's give them a shout out. What do we got here? Adrian Kluk. Thank you, buddy. Candles lit for you. Howard Zimmerman, Patreon donor. Georgie Portillo. One of those two. I'm sure I fucked it up. Georgie or Jorge Portillo. Hey, get a normal last name and a normal first name. Come on, let's change it to Stan Smith. Anyway, thanks guys for donating. Got a show tonight. If you're in the New York area, I'm going to be in Connecticut tonight, and I will be at the FTS Gallery, 2415 Main Street in Stratford, Connecticut. Never been there. Gonna check another city off the list right there. Yes, indeed. Gonna check another city off the list right there. Look at that. Oh, my God. That's my bad, David Lee Roth. Look at all the people here tonight. Anyway, tonight, Stratford, Connecticut. Next week, Comedy Cellar Vegas, June 27th through July 1st. I will be in Las Vegas at the Comedy Cellar. That is located in the Rio Hotel. Cannot wait for that. What else? Got some shows all this week. If you are in New York City, I will be, let's see here. I'll be on Sirius Radio on the Volume Channel on Wednesday, 9 a.m., Comedy Cellar Wednesday, the 20th at 11 o'clock. And what else I got? That's about it right now. Oh, no, I'll be at the Knitting Factory on Sunday, the 24th in Brooklyn. And then, like I said, out to Vegas. Let me give you one last thing. Two things. I talked about that new Mother Hips record last week, and I've been listening to this thing nonstop, and I cannot recommend it enough. Get your ass to the iTunes store. You know how easy that is? You don't got to get in a car. You don't have to ride your bike 7 miles and then go into the record store and take the abuse from the people behind the counter. No, we don't got no Mother Hips. You just open up your laptop. Click iTunes or wherever you buy your music. Yes, buy your music or stream it. And get this new Mother Hips record, Chorus. This record is definitely their best since Pacific Dust, which came out in 2009. And this record's smoking, man. Didn't pay the bill. Amazing. Great stuff. January, Meet Me on the Shore. I Went Down Hard. Get this record. One more thing before we get into the episode. I went and saw Def Leppard a couple nights ago at the mighty Madison Square Garden, which was an honor to be back in there. I hadn't been there in a long time. And I want to shout out to Phil Collin from Def Leppard. He hooked up those tickets just like he said he would, and they were incredible seats. I was about, 30 feet away, and I got to see my boy Steve Rose take photos of Journey. Journey opened. It's like a co-headline, and they're flipping. But the night I went, it was Def Leppard headlining. And I got to tell you, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but Def Leppard, Joe Elliott sounded better than I heard him sound. And I haven't seen Def Leppard since Hysteria tour. But I know over those years that Joe had some voice issues here and there. And I don't know what's going on, but this fucking guy sounded amazing. And the band, just like Phil said, the band singing these background vocals live, It was killing. It was killing, man. They did Foolin', and it sounded so good. And Bringing On the Heartbreak, a couple of oldie classics. And Phil, he had Jackson make him one of the, like a replica of the Ibanez Destroyer, and it was just badass. It was just badass. They were great, man. I was super surprised. I mean, you know, I didn't know what to expect, because when I saw Def Leppard when I was young, they were a punch to the fucking face. They were incredible. So I didn't know, you know, I don't know what I'm going to get, but man, they killed it, and the audience was amazing. The audience was giving it back. So shout out to Def Leppard and Journey. Great tour out there. I guess that's about it right now. I'm still in New York, trying to figure out my life, see what the hell I'm going to do in life. Just keep putting this podcast out and doing spots and just try to figure out what's next. That's what everybody tries to do, right? I love you guys. Enjoy this episode, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let's get into a little handmade action right now. My boy Phil from SoloDallas. All right, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Let the Beat Talk. Today is a fantastic guest. It's kind of a combination handmade guest and rock and roll show. Introduce yourself.
Yay, thanks very much. That sounded great. I almost don't recognize myself. This is Phil SoloDallas. Everyone, hello.
SoloDallas. And if people don't know who that is, I'm going to give you my introduction to you was I was talking to Billy Rowe from Rock and Roll Relics and the Malcolm Young in the AC/DC Power Age tribute, and guitar player for Jet Boy. He was like, "Oh man, we gotta give Phil a call from SoloDallas because he has all these amps and knows Mark Evans from AC/DC and plays Angus and like a tribute, and you got to give him a call." So I give you a call, and it's pretty much beyond anything I even could comprehend. But your amp collection and your knowledge of the gear, and then your excitement, like myself, is over the top. So let's get into a little bit of your background. How did you get into all this stuff? And first of all, you build a wireless replica of what Angus used in the 70s, right?
That's correct, and that's how I got in
the Shaffer wireless.
The Shaffer, yes, exactly. That was the name of the original device. It was the Shaffer Vega wireless device.
Did they become Sherwin Vega later, or Sherwin Vega or whatever?
No. They remained with the Vega Corporation, which actually, funnily enough, was from here, from California. So, and at the time, I was in Italy, because I was born here in this great country of ours.
Right.
But I grew up in Europe the whole time. I just came back.
Why, was your parents in the service or something?
My father was in the Italian Navy, and so he was working jointly with the American forces here.
Does he got a Panerai watch?
He does.
Really? Yeah, the Italian Navy was issued a Panerai watch.
Yes, how do you know that?
Oh, because I'm a watch freak.
So I should know better. And then he got called back after I was born, after a little while. Very shortly thereafter, actually, I have to say. Unfortunately, because I would have loved growing up here in the U.S.
Right. And what part of Italy were you guys
Rome,
in?
Rome, the capital.
Oh, that's great.
So, I never really fit in that context, I think, because I always felt like I was American. I felt I was American.
Right.
Although my parents are fully blooded Italians, and we go
But you
back.
were born in America.
I was born in America, yes. And thanks to that citizenship, I could make it back. Thanks to this project that you mentioned before, so to the SoloDallas project, I could call it that way. What I have done is that at the age of 10, quickly summarizing the facts of my life, sir.
Yeah.
I fell in love with AC/DC.
At 10, how old are you now?
50. Turned
50, yeah,
50 the other day.
I'm 52. Happy birthday, dude.
Oh, you too, bro.
Hell yeah. So you fall in love with him. What record is it? How do you forget him?
That's a good question. Thank you. It was the album, the live album. If you want blood, you've got it.
Same with me. Same one. It's the first one I got. I mean, I hear Sin City. And then that song draws me in. I'm like, oh, Sin City's fucking great. What is it? And then I go to the store, and that's the one they had there. And I get it, and it's just like mind changer.
Did you guys listen the silence on my side? Because I remained in silence because I got chills.
Yeah.
I got chills, they'll multiply.
Yeah.
And so I kept it shut. I was listening to my friend Dean here mentioning, a touching thing in our lives. I was 10 years old because it was 1978.
Right.
And it had just come out. And a buddy of mine says, just my same age, says, you have to feel it. You have to listen to this. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That would be the Italian accent. And I heard it on tape with the headphones. They had, I thought sort of evolved for a Roman shop in 1978, but they had the headphones right there and then. I could give it a listen, and that was boom. And after that day, I never stopped listening to AC/DC, and actually they became a part of my life. We'll just say for now that I worked with AC/DC later on in the years for the people that don't know me.
Which is fucking incredible when things come full circle.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Well, some said Phil circle. Full circle.
That's like me. That's like me with Nikki Sixx. I see him as a kid, and then there he is playing at the show last week. It's just like, wow.
Well, I consider him a friend of yours.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You must have gone through
Well,
several phases.
Definitely friends now, but I'm just saying it's so incredible when life goes full circle.
I'm shaking my head like it's beyond understandable. It's like such a deep emotion.
So you fall in love with AC/DC, and then what? You start to learn guitar at a young age?
That age. Actually, I was starting, I think, a year earlier. I was in love with another American band, with an American band, AC/DC. We're never Americans.
Right, but I get it.
Theoretically Australians, but it's Anglo-Saxon music, so that's why I had that little qui pro quo right there and then, because as a European, I always thought and saw and perceived Anglo-Saxon music, British and American, like the same sort of, which is it's
just rock and roll. Yeah,
jinx. So the other band I fell in love before that was Chic, which is a funk music, American band.
Yeah.
And there's another funny little episode that happened not long ago regarding Chic's guitar player.
Yeah. What was their song? Chic La Freak?
Yes.
Yeah. La Chic, La Freak, Freak Out. Yeah. So great. The 70s had so many great fucking kind of one-hitters that were like really good,
Dean.
Yeah.
I still live there.
Yeah.
I didn't come out of the 70s. I'm still...
Yeah. Well, the 70s had the greatest films, the greatest records, and... what else from the 70s was whack? It's just 70s is just whack. I love disco. I love rock and roll. I love, everything from the 70s, even the clothing, the bell bottoms, the mood rings,
Goosebumps. Goosebumps. So people can't see it without showing Dean goosebumps.
So you start to learn guitar, and do you join a band and stuff?
Yeah. Number of Italian bands, of course, in Rome. The Roman scene at the end of the 70s. 10 years old, then going on to becoming 12 years old in 1980, and I met the son of an important actor at the time in Rome. Which doesn't even matter mentioning here. Nobody will know that guy. But the son was into drums, and the other kid that had introduced me to AC/DC could play either guitar or bass.
Right.
So we put together a little band. We started with
a cover band?
Yeah, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No original material of sorts. We only were into Anglo-Saxon music. So can you imagine
Yeah.
a bunch of Roman kids, Italian singing in Italian rock and roll.
You guys playing AC/DC?
That too.
Yeah.
That too. You know,
Zeppelin, what, stuff like that?
that's exactly it. For many years, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, tried a little bit of Eric Clapton here and now and then. There was also Dire Straits in those years that I truly liked very much.
Yeah.
You know, Sultan Swings and
Yep.
Tunnel of Love and that kind of stuff. But I was a Gibson guy at heart, of course.
You get an SG?
I wasn't, I didn't have the money
Yeah.
at the time. I was a sort of poor kid. So I got into sort of clones that I could
Yeah, the
find.
copies.
Copies, if I was lucky enough actually to get the copies. My first one, I still remember vividly, Dean. It was an Ibanez Gibson-ish,
Yeah.
Les Paul-ish, that weighed probably as a Fiat 500.
Was that like the lawsuit era, where their stuff was almost exact? Because I mean, some of
think
that
so.
shit they had
I
they
think
had
so.
the V that my buddy Keith Peru has the Strat still to this day, and it's one of the finest Strats ever, Ibanez. And then of course the lawsuit Explorer, a V. They had the SG, the Les Paul.
I'm not surprised that stuff sounded great because
Yeah.
they were really great copiers, the Japanese at the time.
It's funny
Amazing.
because I was just talking to some people that didn't even know that Ibanez started out that way. Because, once Ibanez gets sued and everything, it kind of pushes them into making their own stuff. And, Paul Stanley really puts them on the map with the Iceman.
Yeah.
And then they were making the George Benson, which was an incredible, cool jazz guitar that was all
Right.
abalone inlaid. And then comes around Maiden and Def Leppard, Phil Collin, and they start playing those Ibanez Destroyers, and that's really when they're on the map. Yeah.
And it blew.
Yeah, and they
with
start
their
booming. And
original
of course,
stuff, yeah.
later on, Steve Vai with the Gem and all that shit. But I'm talking early on.
Right.
And early on, some of the finest guitar companies were out there, man. Dean was making they were making shit that was smoking
guitar.
Gibson. And then, Charvel, of course.
Another
And
great.
all those guys were
Great.
killing Fender and Gibson
They were.
because those guys had given up. They were just putting out garbage, And I'll tell you what, some of those Deans are the finest, man. Those Dean
with you.
Explorers and Vs.
I know it.
Oh my god!
I wouldn't pass on one if
I would
I'd
take one
stumbled
right
on it.
now.
But of course, it must be extremely expensive.
They're crazy money because they got a niche market and people know what the hell they are. Yeah. So you get like an Ibanez copy.
Yeah, and that weighed like, I don't know, I'm telling you, like an Italian Fiat.
And what's your amp?
Oh, you want to know that? It was a solid state M3. It was, I think, an obscure brand that only had clean and fuzz. That's it.
Yeah. That clean and fuzz. That's great. One knob?
I think so. Yeah, it wasn't even a knob. Actually, it was a switch button.
Yeah.
It was either you had the clean sounds or the fuzz ones.
And were you good at the beginning right away, or did you have to learn it?
No, I
really?
had to learn it.
Yeah.
I took time to learn, and with that kind of sound, I thought that, and at first, I'll never forget that. I thought that at first, the chords that they were, you know that. We all know this about AC/DC and about rock and roll in general. It's just a limited amount of chords that are being played beautifully, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I thought that, at the time, because I was playing by and learning by ear, I thought that the entire chord was actually represented by an open string. So I thought they were just playing the open string.
Oh, wow.
So I was really, really a young kid. Then I figured out maybe it's not just the open A,
Yeah.
something else to that.
Yeah.
And that
like
started
power
coming-
chords.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were just playing shapes.
Yes.
I got you. That's how I was playing it when I first learned. It's like E, G, C, E, G, C. That's still how I play guitar. Like Tom
Sometimes I
Petty
do
style.
too. And you rediscover it's not easy just to go with open strings.
Yeah.
Playing on time with
Yeah.
a groove, with a feeling. And
Yeah.
that's what it matters.
You gotta know what the hell you're doing. So you're doing that for years, and what are you doing for work and stuff? Are you bouncing around?
I go the typical Italian route, which is college, university.
Yeah.
Of course, my parents, I'm an only child, so my parents want me to go through university. And I take information technology, engineering, like my father, but still have this passion at heart. So whatever I can run back to playing guitar, I do it.
Right.
And I also have my piano time where, for a couple of years probably, I dropped the guitar for a little bit in AC/DC, and I went to try to play piano, learning a little bit of jazz because I was really into those amazing chords and not even the melodies themselves, but just the progression of some jazz. And I think it was the fusion years, by the way, so back in the 80s.
Yeah. Who's pushing you there? Like some Steely Dan meets, like, are you going through the rock and roll route, or are you
What's
going...
not to love with Steely Dan?
Yeah,
What's
right.
not to love?
Yeah, Steely Dan.
By the way, one of the very first, the premier, he calls himself that way, Elliot Randall.
Yeah.
He was my first Ender-C with the Shaffer replica. So with the products that I do now, the electronic products that I do make proudly here in the United States. So he was my first Ender-C, actually, and he was also he was one very first guitar player for Steely Dan, and he's done Reeling in the Years, for example. That
Great
one, amazing song. So so I go the college route, but I still have this huge passion of mine of electric guitar, blues, and rock and roll. Of course, heavily focused on the older, earlier AC/DC.
Are you going to concerts at the time?
Yeah, I did many years later, I think.
I mean, you got to think about the most famous AC/DC show. One of them is the Let There Be Rock film shot in Paris,
God,
on the Highway to Hell tour.
I saw it at the theater.
Did you go to that?
To the movie theater, yes.
Oh, I saw the movie theater. Yeah,
movie theater.
Yeah.
That's what I was allowed.
Yeah.
To as far as that's what I could do. Did you go? You probably saw them live.
I saw that tour, but not of course not. I saw them since '78, so I didn't see the Apollo gig.
Bond.
Oh yeah, I saw Bond. Yeah, that's why I'm a lunatic. You know what I mean? I saw him, and it was so funny because everybody was flipping out over Angus, and I've told this story many times, but I was more watching him like, who's the dude with the vest and the weird parrot tattoos, Like, no one had tattoos back then. So I was like, what look at that guy up there. And then, of course, he brought Angus through the crowd back then, you know what I mean?
On the shoulders.
On his shoulders. It wasn't a roadie, it was him, And I was just blown away because it was like 10 a.m. in the morning on an all-day outdoor concert. And I was like, it was like, who are these guys, And immediately I fell in love with them. It was crazy. And I remember that day, Ted Nugent was on the bill, and both bands played a song called Dog Eat Dog.
Oh, you had one as well? That was
Ted has one, Dog, Dog, Dog Eat Dog.
Oh, yeah,
and then
of course.
AC/DC, it's a dog eat dog. Eat cat too.
I already told you twice.
Yeah.
Once at rehearsals, and the other when you were done with the live show, of how impressed I was by your singing. And you got me again right now, because now it was up close and personal on this sofa.
Yeah.
And you sang again.
So
Holy cow. I know you're doing the interview, so you ask the questions.
Yeah.
But how did you get that voice and that singing?
Oh,
you
man.
must have told that story quite a few times as well, but I never heard it. And you're the very first person I get in touch with.
Yeah.
Face to face,
well,
would say the Australians.
What I think about Bon is, and what everybody misses about Bon, they don't understand it. Bon is like a clean singer. He's not a, like when people imitate him, it seems like they're like, it's a dog-eat dog.
I'm shaking hands. You guys don't see that, but I'm shaking hands with Steve because he got this.
They try to throw this like weird growl. Like I'm saying all the bands that were trying to be like if you look at these bands in the 80s that were doing an AC/DC sound, I forget that one band that Simon Wright plays in. Yeah, what are they called? I forget. But anyway, these bands that were doing AC/DC style music, they really weren't listening to the singing to me, it just seemed like. And I was listening to, and especially I talked about it with Michael Devin this week, that Powerade record is a difficult record to sing because there's multiple characters. And he had a bunch of characters. You might not, it's not like Robert Plant where it's all these different, this range and stuff. It's just multiple characters, you know, it's like well, I saw my baby on the railroad track, down and on down, it's
Bless
your
you.
love that I want. That's totally different than Riff Raff. Riff Raff's just crazy,
Tempest of goosebumps.
You know what I mean, though?
Do I?
Anyway, my point is, I fell in love with the singer, and from this day on, I think it over and over and over. There's always arguments of who the greatest rock and roll singer is, and it really comes down to what are we talking about? Are we talking about technique? Because then we're going to be getting into Freddie Mercury, Rob Halford,
I understand,
and some Robert Plant. Are we talking about full on fucking balls out? Because then I'm going to talk about Zach De La Rocha, Rage Against the Machine. Like, what the fuck? Or are we talking about a man who absolutely lived and breathed rock and roll, and if you saw him walking down the street, you'd go, oh, that guy is rock and roll? Because
Boom.
there's all these different categories.
Boom.
And Bon Scott to me is the number one of like, and Henry Rollins hit it on the head where he said a true great frontman is someone that you look at or and go, oh, this guy would not be able to survive in the world if he wasn't in a band because he would just implode. You know what I mean? He's not going to be working at Home Depot.
I'm going to write that down.
You know what I'm saying?
Later. Yes, I understand perfectly. I have never seen it that way. And now that I hear it that way, it's just, once again, it's mind-blowing. I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. That's a true
give you credit when I use that.
That's a true front man.
On my Facebook page, I'm going to write it down.
Yeah. So are you seeing live shows in Rome? Like later on, who are you seeing? Did you see Brian Johnson era? When do you see AC/DC?
It was the Brian Johnson era already.
Back
it was
in black?
well into the 80s.
Oh, well into
No, it was way beyond that.
Fly on
Back
the
in
Wall
Black
or
was
something?
12 years old. I still remember when the tape came out because my mom bought it for me. I was 12 years old.
Yep.
Precisely that summer, July 1980.
Yeah.
I still remember where I was.
I remember where I got it too, but I'll never forget it. Then I remember the second I put it on, there was no one in the house.
Too.
Put it on, I was like, "Oh, this is killer." At first, for a first couple of seconds of Hell's Bells, I'm like, I don't know, and then I was like, oh yeah, it was weird feeling. It was a weird feeling because it was good.
Well, I felt exactly that way. I still feel that way. And
I do too.
I almost on a daily basis, I still listen to Back in Black.
Yeah.
I had to for many, many years, even studying it. And I spoke with, and I know you want to go on with my life at the time and all that, but I also spoke with Tony Platt, who recorded and engineered Back in Black. So I went to London, interviewed Tony.
I love to talk to that guy, Oh,
you would love it.
I mean, because I had on Dave Jordan, and he was at, Compass, or whatever it's called out there.
Yeah.
He was recording the band next door, and he was there while they were recording Back in Black, and he spun in and listened to it. And I was like, weren't you just like, you were the first guy really to hear it outside of the studio as a stranger? The guy was like, hey, step in and check this out. And he was like, whoa, you know what I mean? So think about like what they were making there. It's just crazy because you got to wonder, like I always wanted to interview people that worked on the record, especially Mutt Lange, and he's just a complete ghost in the industry. Never going to get him on, but
No.
There's all that secrets of Bon, wrote the record.
Yes, of course.
Of course he wrote that record,
We all think so.
Yeah, there's just no fucking way he didn't now, as you get older
like
and those lyrics and how quick they did it. But there's inside dudes that have to know.
Yes.
Like, there had to be, like, of course they were keeping it secret back then because I get why.
They still do now.
Well, yeah, they do now. Well, more than ever now. But I'm saying you needed to keep it like that because then people would accept
Yes.
Brian.
Even back then, yes.
Yeah,
You're right,
because
of
then
course.
they would be like, oh, well, if you said new singer with lyrics by Bon Scott, they'd
Worth
be like,
nothing.
oh, this is Bon's
Yeah,
record.
this is
Yeah.
This guy's just a
That's all
replacement.
biz, man. And
Yeah, of
it's
course.
weird that they were that business savvy back then. You know what I mean?
Thanks for mentioning that. They were a clan.
Yeah,
They are a clan.
Yeah.
And they forever will be a clan.
right.
It's been like that. And in fact, let's not forget about George Young. George Young, the first producer, first AC/DC
Played
producer.
bass on Power Age.
You did, sir.
Yeah, and they had a different drummer on High Voltage, Tony. So, there's been secrets for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some of those secrets I try to, at least under the technical perspective, I try to solve.
Right.
And one big secret, which wasn't a secret, not in the sense that they were trying to hide it, but they weren't very vocal about it either. So one of the secrets, in fact, was what was behind Angus sound in those days.
Right.
And once again, not that it had been kept as jealously as a secret.
It was.
but
I thought it was more cast away. It was like it didn't really matter.
that's the point.
Yeah.
Excellent. Bravissimo. That's exactly what it is. They didn't think it mattered, and probably it didn't matter really to a lot of people, but still, there had always been a lot of speculation about how the guitars, bless you, brother, had been recorded on Back in Black, and even for me, for everyone, for every kid that I remember, those sounds, holy cow.
They're incredible.
They
Back in
are.
Black record.
Yeah.
When you listen to it, it almost you can't believe the perfection.
Yes.
You can't fucking believe it, man. And I'm talking some of those deep tracks are really what I'm into. Like Let Me Put My Love Into You, Have a Drink on Me, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution, Giving the Dog a Bone, man. That stuff is just crazy, man.
People can't see me. They can't see you either
Yeah.
right now. This is a podcast, but every song that he's mentioned so far, I go close my eyes, like
Yeah.
a prayer, something like that, and then I
I mean, they
look back
sound
at him.
violent and ear friendly at the same time, which is an impossible thing.
Yes, yes.
It's heavy as fuck, but clean as fuck. So
keep
is
on
the
nodding.
Schaefer wireless
Yes.
when that comes in on the Back in Black record or
Yes.
before?
Earlier.
Right.
And funnily enough, it came about to be used and recorded for the first time with AC/DC in 1978. And that's why I mentioned that first album, not because, I wanted to play this at effect, but it was a coincidence that in 1978, If You Want Blood, You've Got It, was the first AC/DC album to come out with actually the Schaefer being used for those sounds. Now,
It's funny because I had John Nady on. He is the
You did?
Oh yeah, it's incredible, and he's the
I
real.
want to get you Ken Schaefer then.
Well, yeah, I'll do that. But he was the ground zero, I figured, of wireless guitar, and it was such a weird time during that because he was telling me he had kind of invented this wireless guitar and was playing it at parties in his backyard band, and people were thinking this is fake, weird, and then he flew out to LA to show the Stones. And it was called Nasty, of course, Nasty Wireless, not Nady. And the Stone said, "We'll take 5, 10 of these." And then they asked him to tour with them and
I
stuff.
didn't know this stuff.
Oh yeah, and then he goes out and starts it up, and also like
So it's what year? You remember?
78
70-ish.
of some girls is when they start using it, But and if you look at those early ones, Rod Stewart's using the microphone. They say they got the pack on the end and it says Nasty,
It's that. It's that one then.
Yeah, that's him.
I didn't know.
Yeah, so I was wondering, did Ken Schaefer, was he at the same time inventing a wireless and didn't know about his? Because that happens.
Yes, it does happen. Of course, if that's the case, and it could be, listening to Ken Schaefer, the inventor, or an excellent modifier, improver of that system, says that he invented it for first.
Right.
You know, so
which is a could be a great episode.
right.
Because
inviting the two of them together, Mr. Nady and Mr. Shaffer, whether that would have been
Right.
something interesting.
Because as I had Nady on, you know, he was smart.
Yeah,
And what
of
he
course.
did was he got a patent
Yeah.
on all the channels
Yes.
that these ran on.
Smart.
So people like Samson,
Yes.
who were coming up in the industry, because he said what he realized was when he went to go patent the wireless, they said technically you can't patent this because it's radio, transistor radio, and that's already been patented.
It figures.
So he knew right away, I'm not going to be able to fucking put a clamp down on my invention,
He found an alternative.
but I can get all the channels.
brilliant.
And then these people would have to
Brilliant.
lease the channels from him to run their wirelesses.
Brilliant.
Totally.
Got nothing to say. Brilliant.
Totally.
Kenny didn't do this, and in fact, he didn't patent the system at all.
Right.
Plus, he was working with Vega Corporation, so that
They
were
technically owned it.
they technically owned it and co-shared probably marketing. And plus, I know that Kenny for sure he's made some additions, some modifications to improve the system, both wirelessly and audio. And the first one that Ken deployed, he started working around it in 1975 with Vega, and the first one deployed was in '76.
Right.
It was ELO, Orchestra. They were
Yep.
among the very first adopters. So much that, Dean, I still have one of the front panels of the very early system that still says ELO. Because
Whoa.
it was they probably wanted it signed to them or some
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Like their logo on it.
Like it's their logo. And I
Right.
have that panel. And the Rolling Stones also. I have a picture of Mick using the microphone with
Yep.
a Shaffer transmitter package. So I don't know
Pack
if
on his side or on the mic?
no, it was on the side,
All right.
and so I don't know the microphone how it was connected. Probably a little cable going to the transmitter. I believe it was
Wow,
some
yeah.
sort of thing like that. Uncommon, actually. Probably
Yeah.
clumsy a little bit as well. I
Yeah,
don't know.
weird. You have a cord, but it's only to your belt.
Yeah, and I think
That's-
with Vega, it only came several years later that they enabled that. When it became another company, it was called CTEC Vega. It probably might remind you of
I
something.
remember that. See, yeah.
And because it was a Californian company here, used in TV production kind of thing that, the
Right.
people
Headsets.
with the first lavalier, how do we call those?
Lavaliers.
Lavaliers,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And also the entire microphone in your hands with the transmitter inside it. So
Yep.
but it was in the 80s, I believe. So
Game show host type shit with the block on the end.
Exactly that. And so I don't know who's gotten first to what.
Oh yeah, that doesn't really matter. My real thing is like, so Angus gets a hold of one.
77.
77, and he uses it on the Power Age tour where they record the If You Want Blood record.
Powerage also actually, sorry, in fact,
He used it in the studio.
In the studio, yeah.
Because that's the weird part, right?
Yes.
Because like he's trying to get guitar tone,
Yes.
and he's going like, how come this doesn't sound as good as when I'm on live? And then they say plug into the wireless.
George says, and
Yeah.
Angus told me in my face this. So it speaks like this,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And he goes, George told me why don't you go and do the same stuff and use the same stuff that you use live, so that we get that same a type of energy and sound. And it was, all right, let's do this. So he plugged it in and played it in the studio for the entire album. And that's how it first got to be adopted by AC/DC in the studio as well.
So he's playing wireless in the studio.
Yes.
Just to get.
Yes.
Now, on this unit, what he was looking for was the compression that he was getting from this unit, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is correct. Two things, actually. The compression, of course. They described it because they spoke about it. It's just one of those obscure videos that, I probably came out in the 90s, early 90s or something like that. One of those interviews that had been done to them. And Malcolm says, it sounded great, mate.
Yeah.
And so I think they picked it because it sounded great to them, and it had a number of things that they liked about it. Of course, the wireless capabilities, that was great. So Angus could be in the control room doing all the solos relaxedly, just sitting on a sofa, probably very much like this one.
You don't need that long extension cord, and you're losing signal and all that. Yeah.
People don't see, but I'm gesturing like an Italian would do the whole time, pointing at Dean. Exactly that. And the other thing that it did for them was that you could overdrive the amps further, way further.
Because you're not near them.
That's one thing, of course, but the other thing is that they misused it. So they used it in a way that it wasn't meant to be used. So the original wireless system had two outputs. One was just a monitor output, and it was amplified because you could run headphones through that and raise a volume that will present to you looking at the front panel. And then there was the actual output of the unit on the rear panel. And
right.
At first, they started using that output on the back, and there was little to no boost, actually. It was just like using a regular cable. You had some compression, some limiting, some frequency expansion that was needed for the wireless to work, but no further boost. But then they figured out that if he comes out of the headphones monitor output on the front, they can raise the volume and overdrive the front end of the amp with the internal amplifier, that being a clean boost.
So the actual receiver of the wireless unit, he plugs into the head. Why would there be a headphone jack on this design in the first place?
Transitions, I think. So it was there from the beginning. I know this for sure because I've seen
What's it for, though? Like for someone,
they meant it to be there for the sound engineers, so that the sound engineer can wear a pair of headphones.
You mean the roadie? Like a roadie
or sound engineers on stage to make sure that the signal is going there.
Wow.
Is the signal coming in? Check 1, 2, 3.
Wow, that's such a dumb design that turns out to be cool. You know what I mean? Like, who the hell is going to plug? That'd be like having a wireless mic right now, and you go over to the receiver part and plug in and go, yeah, all right. Like, you're only, first of all, you're sitting there, you're only going to hear a guitar. You're not going to hear anybody else or anything.
Correct.
And it's fucking on because you can hear it. That's so weird, that design.
Very weird.
I'd love to ask him why he put that on there.
I much likely would say, I don't remember, Phil, what we did back then. And then, because I asked everything.
Yeah.
Everything I asked, and I keep on asking, because sometimes he will remember. Kenny's around 70 years old.
Right.
And he always tells me this, Phil, if you lived the 70s, you don't remember nothing about it.
Well, it's sniffing a lot of solder and you're doing drugs. Solder sniffers, man. I see these people.
Right.
Guy that worked on my stereo over there, man. He's just soldering all the time, no mask or anything.
Yes.
I'm like, dude. Yeah. So, at what point do you become obsessed, or at what point does AC/DC realize we got away from that unit? Because I do remember specifically the time that Rick Rubin was going to do their AC/DC record.
Oh.
He said, I want to find those amps that you used on the early records. And they flew to Australia or whatever to a warehouse. They opened it up and said, these are the amps we used. I wonder, is it at that point where they're like, how do we get this tone? We can't get that tone anymore. What happened? And do they go like, oh, it must have been that old Shaffer wireless?
So regarding me, my obsession started in 1978.
Right, I get that.
I hear that, and that's when I want to get that sound.
Right.
Period. Of course, it didn't happen with the M3 amp, nor with the Ibanez guitar.
Right.
It didn't happen right there. I had to wait until I was 22, 23 to afford the first SG and the first Marshall. And here we'd speak about the fact that it was 1987, 88-ish.
Yep.
And the gear that you were able to purchase new in those years was not the same stuff.
Yeah, so I'm in that era. So what I buy is an SG called the SG. And Gibson had put out this cheaper line. It was still great, but it was just made of mahogany. And they had the Les Paul and the SG. And then the next year they called them the Fire brand because they branded in the Gibson name on them. But I got that. And, we don't sound like Angus. We plug it in. I don't sound like Angus at all.
Probably good instruments just as well.
Great, yeah.
My guitar was a good instrument. It was came out in 86, I think, and I bought it in 87. And then I sold it, but I just bought it a few years ago because I still wanted to have that same reissue that I bought back then.
What was the reissue?
In 1987 SG 61 reissue, they called it.
Right.
You can see it. And they showed you a picture of Angus on a poster playing something like it, not it.
I remember that. It said Gibson down the side.
That's the one.
Yeah, yep. Yeah.
That's the one.
That poster.
But of course, it was nowhere near a 61.
Yeah.
It was just the first Gibson attempts at getting their heritage back.
Yeah.
So they started feeling we got something right back in those years, in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
Something went wrong in the 70s.
Yeah.
And the 80s, we still don't got it yet back. So let's work on that. So I think it started at the end of the 80s when they started to really get back into the great instruments that they were making.
Yeah.
Not that the instruments that we bought in the 70s and the 80s were necessarily bad instruments from Gibson,
They just weren't the same.
But they weren't the same.
Yeah. Maybe the pickups were all shitty. Fender gets away from cloth wiring. They're using these, shitty pots and everything. They were, polyurethane paints. There's no nitrocellulose. Everything is totally different, And also, there's no long cigarette bar blues, rehearsals, years of jamming soaked into those fucking things,
Am I nodding or am I nodding not?
Yeah.
Am I not nodding?
A lot of those
neck
pickups
ache.
sound incredible because of just shit, sweat, and booze and everything in them. Sometimes when you get a mint, new old stock 60 SG, it sounds like ice picks. It's just too fucking high indie. It hadn't been played.
That's what I keep on telling guitar players of all ages still to this day, which is why I like them battered instruments.
Yeah.
Stuff that's been used.
Yeah.
If you came to me with a 1959 Les Paul from under a bed, one owner, never played, I'd probably tell you, well, thanks very much. I'll take it. Still, because
of course we will. It's
Les Paul.
It's fucking. It's the holy grail, but it ain't gonna sound like fucking
like
Gary Moore's. Or, the one that went from fucking Peter Green to Gary Moore to Kirk Hammett. I mean, that thing has got absolute soul. You know what I mean?
Thanks for saying it so that I don't have to this time.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's it. That's how it is.
Yeah.
And so I had to wait, when I was 20, but still I bought that stuff. I wasn't happy with that. So I kept on searching, Dean, for years. And many years later, because I was already 45 years old, and I was living in Rome, so that was about 5-6 years ago, I think, probably even longer than that. I was playing from my basement and doing my YouTube videos.
Oh, yeah.
From that basement. And it's not a bad thing, because many of us rock and rollers, we grew up in the freaking basements trying to play rock and roll, because nobody wants us elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because we're loud.
Get down in the basement. You rat.
That's what my wife would tell me. And from that basement, I started doing serious research about Back in Black.
Right.
So I went to London. I interviewed Tony. I already had in mind a phrase from Van Halen, because he mentioned that actually before then there was one single interview where Angus answers to a specific question. So, Angus, what's the effect that you use with the guitar? And he goes, I don't use no effects. I just use a Shaffer Vega. For me, it's probably the best. So he goes with an answer like that to a question of what effect? Why are you mentioning a wireless system?
Right.
Saying that that's your effect.
Right.
So that lit my lamp. And I was, oh man, this is it. Been looking for this.
Yeah, no pedals on the floor for Angus. Nothing in a rack.
Seen anything. He's always said that he was plugging in straight, more or less straight,
Totally.
well, through wireless, but still kind of straight. So my research became really, really, and it's all blogged, by the way, because I had this blog of mine With the
what is the blog?
With by SoloDallas.com.
Dope.
It
Okay.
had been existing since I believe 2009, so it's been a few years out
So
there.
you go interview Tony.
Yes.
And is that where you realized that he used it in the studio?
Yes. He says with his beautiful British accents
Yeah.
and his incredible calm at all times, extremely.
Is he still alive?
Oh yes, is alive and very charming, and still got a lot of knowledge. And he says actually something like, "I got ears to travel." So meaning that he's willing to reach you wherever you are. From
Right.
Great Britain is going to go wherever you want him to be in order to do the sounds that you expect him to do. So he's still working, I believe. And in fact, it wasn't very many years ago. It was 3-4 years ago, I think, or 5 years ago. Once again, probably that went to London.
I mean, that guy worked on the greatest record ever made.
Starting with Free. He was also there.
Whoa, he did the free records?
did.
Like Fire and Water and
I
shit?
think he did Fire and Water. He was in the
Whoa.
studio. He did some stuff for that. He was a tape guy at the time, so he
Oh,
was
yeah.
a younger boy, but still.
I mean, those records, when you put on that fucking thing, it's just like,
Jesus.
you can't even believe it, actually.
Me neither. But that's how it is.
Right.
So, and that's why I went to London, to Air Studios, to speak with him and to interview him. And he said, "Yes, Phil, we used the radio." He would call it the radio.
Yeah, the
we
radio.
used the radio and in
Yeah.
the studio. And then from Highway to Hell to Back a Block. I was
Oh, he
there.
worked on Highway to Hell?
He mixed Highway to Hell.
Oh, fuck.
Right. He didn't record it.
Yeah,
but he mixed
yeah.
it. I'm not
That's
very good.
interesting because, I think even at some point, because the SoloDallas or the Shaffer Vega,
Yeah.
they go out of business or whatever.
Kenny, exactly. He left Vega in 1981.
And then Angus has to be using like Nady or Sony or Samsung.
Right. So we've been researching that because I wanted to know, Angus, when is it that you stopped using it? And I asked him
Yeah.
plainly.
Totally.
We were in Vancouver at the Warehouse Studio where he was about to record Rock Robust.
Right.
I went there.
Yeah.
He called us there. Kenny and I, it was the two of us, with a bunch of Schaefer replicas that we wanted to gift him with because he wanted
he
the
hears
thing.
you're making them again.
Yes.
But let's don't get into that yet.
No,
because,
we don't.
But did you
So I
ask
asked him. When?
Does it had to break over the time? And he probably didn't have like 20 or 30 of them.
I can't remember. Two.
Yeah,
Two. I
two.
had two. I can't remember when I stopped using. I can't remember why I stopped using it.
And Ellen, his wife, is in front of him.
Uh-huh.
She's like nodding, like, "Come on, say something, dude." And she said, "I know about that. I know why he stopped using it." She's Dutch.
Yeah.
So she's got a slight accent. And they stopped around 85, 86. And the reason is simply because they would go with the newer technology.
Yeah. I mean, it had to have broke. I mean, those things are just like, they're not built for like AC/DC touring. I'm
Right.
talking about
Very true.
every year,
Very true.
hundreds of shows.
Can you
and
imagine Angus
massive
shaking that way?
Different weather and different residue and humidities and sweat and
Stage antics.
traveling and smoke, stage smoke and cigarette smoke
Nodding.
and pyrotechnics.
Heavily nodding.
Yeah. So, I mean, that shit, so eventually they have to break and he switches to something else and he had to think like my tone's not the same anymore.
It changed.
Yeah, it did.
Some people started thinking, this is not Angus. This is
Right.
someone. Angus died and someone took his place. Because he changed also his style of playing. I believe he's also changed strings gauge and stuff. So he went up. Because to my surprise...
He was like at 8s or 9s,
He was
right?
8s.
8s, yeah.
He was. Thanks for saying that. Because I thought he was 9s. And I grew up with 10s. And actually on that first Ibanez of mine that I told you about, I
Right.
had 13s on.
Yeah.
So good luck playing
rhythm
with
style.
that. And then I switched over the years to lighter strings, of course. Went to 10s, and I thought Angus was using 10 because the store clerk told me Angus is using 10.
Right.
So the store clerk told me it's got to be true, right?
Yeah.
So I used that for years, and then I find out in probably early 2000s that it was not 10s. It was 9s
Yeah.
at the time. And then touring with Mark Evans, AC/DC bass player, and Simon Wright, AC/DC drummer, last summer in Australia.
Right.
We put together a thing, and we toured Australia with those two guys. And Mark Evans tells me, mate, he played 8s.
That's crazy.
8s. And I went nuts because I was touring with them. I was using nines. I was using, and so I wanted to switch immediately to eights. I didn't do that.
Eights are so small,
so thin.
And they gotta break instantly.
You're afraid that they're gonna break.
I know.
But instead,
Angus never breaks strings, man. It's
very rarely.
Yeah, very rarely. And he's always in tune, which is crazy.
Dean, not in the old days. So if we go back to the old recordings.
Yeah, well, they just tuned to each other, which was weird. So whenever you try to learn the songs, you're like, what are the tuning here? Whatever they wanted to tune to.
That's the point.
Whoever's E was, here, tune to my E.
That's another point. With people getting nuts, and trying to figure out why is the tuning up or down here?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
There's no why. It's just that they were, whatever they find in the studio, however they were tuned. Maybe a couple songs, there's a specific reason, like it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Yeah.
That one probably they tuned it up for the pipes so that Vaughn could play that stuff. With an A chord on the guitars.
Yeah, there's some that's tuned down and stuff.
But that's about it.
So once you find out what it is, you start researching to find one. Do you buy one on eBay or something?
I searched for a year. I bought every American publication magazine I'm talking about. eBay can't find none, so forget about that. I'm looking for Shaffer Vega, okay, and it's spelled as Shaffer dash Vega. So I start looking for that stuff. None to be found. I start buying from the U.S. all the magazines that have used hardware sales on the end part of the magazines.
Right.
None. None.
Nothing on eBay?
Nothing on eBay. I could find some CETIC Vegas.
Right.
So I buy them all. All the CETIC Vegas, many broken ones, for parts, $50 you can get this. Good luck, kid, making it work. So I get a bunch of those. And in fact, the first unit that I got working was one of those. So I bought, 20.
Yeah.
And I was able to match one transmitter with some other receiver from the CETIC Vega days.
Right.
So it was a different unit, different color, horizontal as opposed to vertical.
Right.
But then I say, this is it. I could already hear that those were the things that the system was doing to the sound. So I go, I really want to have, I need to have no doubts about this. I want to go all the way down. What do? I need to get in touch with Ken Shaffer then.
Yeah.
Start looking desperately the world for Ken Shaffer.
Right.
And I find him on LinkedIn.
Really?
But we were not connected. So at the time, LinkedIn does not let you send messages to people you're not connected with.
Shit.
So you had to pay $25
to
send one email.
Yeah, that's all right, though.
I sent a book worthy of email to Kenny, and he waits, I don't know why, a month to get back to me. I figure he probably studied all my work, the research, the log, the stuff that I was researching. And he gets back to me. Phil, I kind of dig your research. And our friendship started there. So I learned.
Where was he living?
New York.
And what was he doing? Is he retired?
Oh, he's retired, but he's always an inventor.
So you fly to go see him?
I didn't fly, but I purchased on the spot the last few remaining units
from him.
From him,
he had some at his house.
Yes.
Whoa.
In the basement.
Well, once he left, was he kind of selling them on his own website or something?
Gone. NASA.
Wow. So you purchased some and they worked.
One worked.
One worked,
and the other I bought for parts.
Right.
And that was perfect for me because I figured there must be something wrong with these units 40 years later.
Yeah.
And instead, it worked very, very well, that one working unit. So much that I started studying it, to reverse engineer it because I played a couple of videos with it for the guys, YouTube guys that were following me at the time. The videos are still there. Pretty enjoyable, I would say. And I ask, and I sort of throw a poll and the blog saying, who wants something that sounds like this, but it's a pedal?
Yeah.
And overwhelming response. So I get it. Got to do this, Phil. This is it. This is my chance.
And what is your background on any electronic shit? Did you have any background on that stuff?
Shitty. I'm an information technology engineer, so I kind of know electronics, but more on the programming side of things. That my job was, in fact, an information technology company for 15 years.
Right.
But electronics per se, none. Plus, Dean, we must realize this is analog.
Analog, that's
technology
right.
from 70 something.
Yeah, because it goes to digital later.
Very much later, and which is something we like very much. And also the FM, frequency modulation, transmission and reception. That way of doing things has been abandoned a long while ago. So nobody is there that knows these things. There's no schematics I can find. Ken does not remember much, if anything at all. So I'm on my own in Rome, Italy, with a working Shaffer Vega University.
Well, and that's all you got.
That's all I got.
So you need to figure out, reverse it all.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
So I start going crazily around with some Roman engineers. Yes, I think we can do this. Give me the unit to me back and study this. Give it to me. We start that way, throw a first prototype. It hissed more than when there's a storm of 300 miles per hour in Florida.
Yeah, it's just
So
all...
the hiss was just unbearable. You couldn't even play a chord. All you heard was like that. Because, of course, there's a compressor inside. It was pretty hard to track.
Right.
The reverse engineering, do it properly. But, over probably 1.5 years of reverse engineering, and I went, thanks to a good friend of mine who worked in Germany and was also my assistant administration for the SoloDallas.com, Franz Farkless. I want to mention him today because he was the first guy in Germany that I started working seriously with this. And he got us another engineer from Germany, or Austria, Germany mixed. And he got us our first prototype that was actually working and was pretty good sounding. And
you mean he put it together?
yes, he did put it together.
And it was close, though?
It was very close. Very close.
What do you think was the tweaks that needed to be done?
Filtering. We needed to play more with the filtering. So a few things that this engineer had not grasped.
Right.
Because it took us a few more years and a few more engineers came and went, until we got our current one, who was a brilliant genius kid from Northern Europe. Again.
And he comes in and just completely ninjas it?
Yeah, I want to use that term you just used.
Yeah.
Ninjas it?
Yeah, ninja.
That's it. You taught me 2 more words. Yeah. And I say them currently, and they're rad and dope.
Yeah.
I'm using them. I'm sorry. I took them from you.
How do you find this kid?
He comes to me. He was he was a child from the times of the blog. He had been following me for years.
Right.
Dries Potvin.
Yeah.
From nearby Holland, from the Flanders. And he says, I think I can do this. I think because there's still something. And we were starting, we started
to sell them.
selling them successfully. I mean, Angus had used it already.
Wow.
God damn it. On the album.
Well, how do you get a hold of him?
He called us.
He calls you.
He through a common person, he got in touch with us.
Yeah.
Come over to Canada. Recording now.
So we flew immediately. I was, can I say this?
Yeah.
Scared, shitless.
Yeah.
Can I say this?
Is
to
that
our
when?
friends?
Yeah. So that's when you flew to Vancouver. Yeah. On the rocker bust.
Yeah.
So you bring him one that's not even as good as the one now.
Yeah.
So you bring him 3.
Yes.
And it was Malcolm using one too, or he straight chord?
Mal wasn't there.
Oh yeah.
No, he wasn't there. He was already sick.
Oh yeah.
It was just Angus. Stevie was there.
Yeah.
Rick St. Pierre was there.
Yeah.
The
Was
tech
Stevie
guy.
using it?
Stevie wasn't using it. He was using proper wireless system. Because you know that when we reverse engineered those, we didn't make them wireless anymore. Because we didn't want that obsolete, antique, old, and even prohibited by law.
You're just making the box.
I'm just making the box with the audio circuitry.
I gotcha. So you're not.
Still the good.
So they're using some state of the art digital wirelesses now, like Sony or Samsung or Shure. Oh, there you go. Shure, who's like the kings.
And that's what you want.
Yeah, you want
what
state of the
I
art
want.
wireless,
I want you to be able to use your favorite wireless system.
Yeah.
Why should I, force you to go for that sound with my wireless?
Right.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Years and in developing, research and development, trying to find another wireless technology to make it work. I wouldn't.
So you just have the frequency, the actual. It's like the box, but no wireless.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
had the audio circuitry
Right.
that would process the sound on the original transmitter and from there to the original receiver.
Right.
But minus the wireless transmission reception part.
Gotcha.
The antennas, the transmitter, throw that stuff away. That belongs to the 70s.
Yeah.
Those frequencies are banned
Yeah.
from the FCC here in the United States. Cannot use them. You're an outlaw if you try to use that stuff.
Totally.
So you
When
gotta go-
Angus plugs it in, is he like, oh, this
loves
is,
it.
Yeah, really?
Yes. So I wasn't there. They
Yeah.
told me because
You weren't there?
I when he plugged it in. No.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
Still, the recording room was not set up.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got there as the second day that he was there. He called
Gotcha.
me right away.
Yeah.
So we go there, took a couple of pictures.
Uh-huh.
Kenny's there as well. As usual, he speaks for like nonstop.
Yeah.
I was scared shitless
Yeah,
to
yeah.
find myself in front of my hero for the first time in my life.
Yeah. I met him when I was a kid, and it's just kind of like I'd still, I equivalent it to when I skydived. You just don't really remember
that.
any of it. It's just a full adrenaline blast,
I like that. I like
Yeah,
how you
it's just like
described it.
an overload of like, whoa, this is a dude who completely, I mean, that's back in the days of rock stars were like, they were superheroes or something. They weren't real to me.
No.
They were such gods.
God.
Yeah.
So
So he starts using it, and then the kid from
they call me the next day and
Oh, yeah.
say, Phil, you liked it. He's plugging it in for the album. Bye.
Wow, that's it, huh?
I
Bye.
fainted.
Yeah.
I cried for a second in front of my wife secretly. And it was one of the happiest moments of my life.
That's insane. Now, once that happens,
Yeah.
the Holland kid gets a hold of you, and he goes through it again and makes something even better.
Yes. So first we have all the touring. So Angus does the record. The reviews come out. Guitar Player magazine has the cover story with us on it.
Yeah.
So it was huge for us. Life changing. So much
huge,
that I
dude.
moved.
Yeah, so-
From Italy. Sometimes I say shittily. From Italy, from that place that I know that many of our listeners probably like.
Yeah.
Beautiful landscapes. And I moved to the
San
US.
Diego. San Diego,
Why
right?
San Diego, you would ask?
Yeah, exactly. It's not the rock and roll capital.
Because the wife. Only seals go to die on the shores of San Diego. I've been told.
That's hilarious. So, once it starts selling, and you're on Guitar Player magazine, are you guys making these by hand?
Yeah.
In San Diego, or where are you
Nah.
making them?
We're still making them at the time in Europe.
Oh,
Still
in
making
Europe.
it in Germany because beautiful product, incredible workmanship.
Yeah.
Not a new beautiful technology, yeah?
Yeah.
But then I realized it's a hard life being here and having to coordinate, the
Yeah.
factory industry.
Different
down there.
times and all
then
that.
ship them over, and
Yeah.
now it's a mess. Lots of unwanted costs,
Yeah.
as well. So, and you know what, Dean? My dream was to bring it back to the U.S. and
Yeah. So where do you make them now?
Colorado,
Colorado. Rad.
made
And
in America.
how many products how many of these you selling?
A few thousands, I think, I've sold so
Yeah.
far.
Because, there's all this press about how guitar is dying off, with Gibson and everything's going
yeah,
away.
It is. I
So
know. Yeah.
is that when you decide to expand and go into other things like foot pedals and amps and everything? Because you make amps now, right?
I make one model
Right.
of an amp, which is a clone of what was used on Highway to Hell and Back in Black.
Yeah.
So I'm still home with AC Dicey. I ain't moving.
What amp is that?
Let's say it. I said it already. It's not like it's a secret or anything like that. But Dean, it was quite a rare, one of the rarest, most rare. My accent betrays me sometimes. Marshall models. It's a 1967 JTM 50. So it's not a JTM 45.
Right.
And why am I telling you? Because if you go online, still to this day, you research what is Angus Young favorite amplifier.
Yeah.
JTM 45 comes out.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a lie.
But JTM, did he tell you that?
He didn't tell me. And why? You know why?
What?
Because he don't know.
Oh, he doesn't know.
He
Yeah.
doesn't know nothing.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what he's playing, right?
Angus, what? No, the guitar doesn't know.
Yeah.
And he confused the 1965 for 72 or 68 for 71. He did
What?
that. He messed up with me.
Yeah.
Not because he didn't want to tell me.
Yeah.
He never cared about that.
He doesn't care. He just throws it on and
That's
rides.
how he does.
That's
how
all he
rolls.
does, dude.
And he could do it for his entire life, and now he's got his net
Yeah.
worth $300 million.
Yeah, more than that.
More than that.
More than that.
Way more than that. With the wine
He's
stuff
the-
that they're doing in Australia, it's got to be more.
He's
right?
the only guy now.
And he's the only guy now.
Let's talk about. Did you watch the Back in Black? Oh, first of all, the JTM 50. Did they make it just 1 year or something?
So it's another one of those stories that has a beginning, and it's the beginning is that Marshall started cloning 59 Fender 59 Bassman amps.
Right. Great amp.
62-ish.
Great amp. 4-input Tweed. One of the best amps
Still
ever.
love it.
That
This
one
day
and
we still
the, and
love
the high-powered twin Tweed. But I like the low-powered twin Tweed, and I love the deluxe, you know. But
Well,
yeah,
it's
so
just-
they're replicating that, and then
62. So and then they want more power. You know, this usual. If we study the evolution of that kind of technology, the analog thing back in the day, you know, they have someone going to them and say, "Hey, can you make it louder?"
yeah,
Yeah, sure. So from 2 output tubes, they go to 4 maybe, or maybe still 2, but let's change the output tubes from KT88s or 6L6s.
Yeah.
Let's go to EL34s. So that's
Right.
going to have a louder output. And then maybe change the rectifier tube, which is the GZ34. Let's get rid of that. Let's put a solid state thing in there instead of the rectifier. So a
and
solid
that
state
gives it the
rectifier.
5 more watts.
It gives you more wattage. It gives you a prompter sound. It saturates better. It's more prompt to when you play those chords. Ow!
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
with that attack.
Yeah.
The JTM 45 is like,
Yeah,
and the JTM 50 is not.
right.
It's raw power. We had it. We had a few of those JTM 50s on stage
Yeah.
a few nights ago with the Bon Scott tribute.
Yeah.
Damn it, we
Now,
love that
are
sound.
those things selling? What are they called?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
SD50.
Yeah.
Not very.
Are they all
regional.
hand point to point and everything?
Point to point, made by hand.
Were those made in Colorado?
No, those are a few of those got made here in Los Angeles, and currently we're making them still in Northern Europe, but we are transferring onto Canada, and just for cost effective and shipping effective.
Yeah.
you know, because we are selling all over the world. Because I started in Europe as a European.
Yeah.
And then from it got immensely better.
How much are those?
It's quite expensive, $3,200.
32, but
Yeah.
a great rig.
It's it.
Yeah.
You know, it really sounds like those vintage.
I love the
ones.
look of it.
It's my thing, Dean. I couldn't. That's it. You know, I
Yeah.
look at a Marshall, vintage Marshall,
Plexi.
and I start. You know,
It's just
It's my
plexi panel,
That's-
JTM 50 it says.
that's it, babe.
Yeah.
That's. I don't even put a logo
You
yet.
no
on it.
logo on it. I love it.
Of course, I'm also afraid of being sued by Marshall, but that's a whole different story. But still,
Yeah.
you know, even
Yeah.
without logo, just that clean chassis there.
Yeah.
You know, that-
There was that time where AC/DC was using Wizard amps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were way into them.
Oh, yeah.
That was on the, I guess, Rock or Bust or I mean, it
Earlier.
was like in 96 or something.
Yes.
Yeah. What record was that? I can't remember, but
Right.
I think it was the one that Rick Rubin did.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
tour,
much
yeah.
like it. Yes. I'm
But I
convinced
remember
that.
all of a sudden they had Wizards, and
Yes.
they were like, "What
Yes.
the fuck?"
Yeah.
And that guy was from
Rick.
Toronto, right? Or I mean Vancouver.
No, not from Vancouver. I think it's from the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere else on the East Coast ish,
Gotcha.
more towards that area. Rick St. Pierre, which we salute in case he's listening or will listen to this.
Yeah.
The great guy, and he's been with AC/DC for 30 years.
Whoa, he's still with them,
Not anymore because he left. I think he retired from the live scene.
right?
when
But
he-
what was he, like a tech or something?
Oh yeah, has been Mal Tex for as long as Mal was there since 1990.
That's
1988.
That's how it started, huh?
Yes. He was their tech. They're amp tech.
And then he just started making amps.
And then he would modify at first the
Yeah.
amps that they liked the most.
Wow.
In order to get out of them what they wanted.
Yeah.
You know, mate, if we can get this more prompt or more direct, or if we can get more upper high mids or less of that or more,
Yeah.
and he would modify the amps that way. That's why he's got his name Wizard, because he was a wizard with those amps.
That's
you know?
insane, right?
And then he said, "Why don't I
Make my own.
make my own? Since I've been working so much on
He was
those
killing
Marshalls."
it. I remember my buddy had a Wizard combo, and I
have it too.
loved it.
I have a couple of those.
You
too.
got Wizard combos?
Not the combos. I have
Oh, yeah,
the,
you got the heads. I
full
saw the
stacks.
heads. Yeah.
And Mal especially was in the Wizards. Angus was very shortly in the Wizards for a time, but Angus really, he likes probably, going back to what's classic to him.
Totally.
What's familiar to him. It's that kind of guy,
Yeah.
So not technical at all.
How do you hook up with Mark Evans and Simon and do this tour? Now, you did a tour last
Yes,
year. It
yes.
was like a cover AC/DC tour.
Yes.
And let's get into a couple things on that.
Of course.
What did you guys play, like a greatest hits, and why did you guys do it?
Right. So my friend James Morley, who's former Angels, he used to be with Angels back in the day, and he saw me on YouTube all these years, and then we became friends, pen pal friends, online friends. Because he's like, in his Australian accent, he's actually a Brit who moved to Australia many years ago, 30 years ago probably. So, Phil, this is James.
Yeah.
And I dig your style and what you do, and I think that there's only you doing Angus the way you channel Angus. So would you like to come to Australia and in honor and with the occasion of Bon Scott's 70th, I think, 70 years.
Was it like the Bon Scott Fest?
No, it wasn't,
Was
because
this-
that's in Scotland.
I got it.
right?
So it was like it was his birthday.
It was the birthday in, I think we did it in Melbourne and in Adelaide
Right.
and Perth. And so it being Bon Scott's 70th,
Yeah.
we say 70th, right?
70th.
70th, well, you say it better.
He's coming up on 40 years gone.
Right,
2 more years.
right.
Because it's, next month is 40-year anniversary of Power Age, which is pretty wild.
We got to do something about that. I'm looking at you now.
We just did it. We just did.
We did. We got to do more.
So they put it together, and Mark Evans, I mean, what has that guy been doing all his life? Oh, I know he's in Rose Tattoo now.
Yeah.
But what did he do when, you're out on the road with him? Were you asking,
Oh, yeah, all
dude,
the
you got
time, the whole
fired?
time.
What happened?
The
What-
whole time.
What was going on?
The whole time. I wouldn't ask that particular question because I was the only one in that, not being an Anglo-Saxon
Right.
in that particular situation.
Yeah.
Situation. And so, but I can tell you this. We did 20 minutes of rehearsals before going on the next day, before going live, of course, and starting the tour directly on stage.
Right.
I was kind of
20 minutes of rehearsals. How many songs you
20
doing?
minutes, including a TV thing for the national TV that
How
came
many
with
songs you
cameras.
guys doing?
15, 16, something
Right.
like that. But I had been told quite in advance. So I studied, and plus my whole life I've been studying AC/DC.
Yeah,
so
yeah, of
that-
course.
And that's what James
Who
was
is the
expending.
singer?
A former The Poor singer. The Poor is the name of this Australian band who also opened for AC/DC back in the 90s. So it was a quite successful Australian band at the time, I
Right.
get. And so the name of the singer is Skinny. It's called that way. Great guy. Became brothers with him. Our age, we're
Yeah.
all this age, 50 something. And so, but I want to tell you about Mark Evans.
Yes.
So we gather in this basement, and we're ready to go with these 20 minutes of rehearsals before we hit it on the next day. And so Mark plugs in the bass. We start with the first song. I can't remember what it was, and Mark's fucks up. Boom.
Yeah.
Makes a mistake right there and says,
Yeah.
"Of course they fired me. Look at me. I can't even get this right." We, burst into laughter. Specifically me. I thought it was just brilliant way.
So, did he get fired because he just wasn't good enough?
It could be.
Right.
It could be. In the view of Malcolm Young. You know, Malcolm was...
soldier. I mean, Malcolm was the general, and he was probably like, "Yeah, I'm sitting next to you each night. You're fucking up."
He was.
Yeah.
He was very disciplined, and he knew what he wanted. He wanted a fucking rock band,
Yeah.
rockin' and rolling band. That's what he wanted, and he got it in the end. God, if you did, and so if you weren't up to the part with him, if you didn't play the way he wanted you to play, you'd be out.
Yeah,
and there
yeah.
have been quite a few people, you know, that came and went.
Brian Johnson. Oh man, crazy. You know, and of course Simon Wright.
Simon, I think Simon
Phil
left
Wright.
on his own.
Yeah, he left. Yeah, he went and played with Rhino Bucket.
With Dio first.
Dio, yeah.
Dio,
and then he
Dio,
played with Rhino Bucket.
Then Rhino
that was the
Bucket.
band I was talking about earlier. That was them, yeah.
Gotcha.
Straight
Gotcha.
AC/DC.
I'm brothers with Simon too.
Yeah.
Simon is my bro. He lives here in Tarzana.
Yeah.
He's a brother.
Yeah, I was trying to get him on the show, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it." And he just kind of, yeah.
I'll tell him.
Yeah, we'll get him on.
I'll remind him.
Well, dude, that's an
He'd
incredible,
love to do it.
incredible story, and I'm so happy to have you on. And it was
You can't
great to
imagine.
have you part of this thing. And
can't
your
imagine the
knowledge
joy.
was incredible.
The joy.
And
It's a joy.
let's tell everybody where they can find you and get
Yeah.
equipment.
Yes, Dean. Thank you so much. Everyone can find us at SoloDallas.com, and I'm not so sure it's a very easy name to remember.
Spell it, yeah.
SOLO.
DALLAS.
Yes, exactly that.
It's like your solo in Dallas, Texas. SoloDallas.
That's exactly how it came to be.
.com, yeah.
It was, manufactured in shittily, this name.
Yeah.
Solo, because I used to look like Harrison Ford-ish. So they
Yeah.
started calling me, hey, Solo. And Dallas, because I was born in Dallas, Texas, proudly so, I can
Is
say
that really? Is what?
I
That's
was born in Dallas, Texas.
No, but I mean, is that how it came out?
Yes.
Whoa.
And it stuck.
Oh, my God.
So I didn't change it because, I opened that YouTube channel with that stupid, foolish name.
Yeah.
And it caught on. Dude,
What
I
is
had
the YouTube channel? SoloDallas?
Solo Dallas.
Yeah, and all
Something
your
like
like AC/DC tutorials are on there and shit?
It's old. I used to have, 16 million views and 25,000 subscribers.
Really?
Back in 2008.
Why'd you give that up? That's good money.
They shut me down.
Why?
Copyright infringement. At the time, it was a big thing with my AC/DC covers. Not
Really?
anymore. Not today. You can do that.
You can do covers.
They changed the rules.
Holy shit.
But you would get the strikes. You remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
Got one strike for copyright infringement.
Yeah.
Second strike, third strike, you're out. Out, Phil.
Yeah.
Out I was. Then I had to create another one. But, things in YouTube changed very much. And
Yeah.
it's just normal, natural things
You got a
changed.
YouTube channel now, though, right?
Oh, yeah. It's been there since 2009. There's
Yeah.
loads of videos there.
That's rad, man. Well, follow him.
It is rad.
Check him out on YouTube and go to his website. And I'll tell you what, man, if you're looking for an amp, get one of these heads if you want to just be like, I'm telling you, everybody that was at the AC/DC event that played, we all said one thing hands down. You could not look, boutique amps are amazing, and I love them, and I've always loved boutique amps, but that's more if you're looking for an AC30 kind of singer-songwriter rock and roll amp. But if you want to play rock, you cannot play rock without a Marshall amp or a Marshall style amp. And as soon as they're plugged in and turned on, there it fucking is. There it is. It comes on. It's just like, wow. There it is,
May the universe bless you.
And so many people don't even get the joy of hearing these things fry their right eardrum like mine. You don't even know what it's like to lose your hearing to the pleasures of Angus Young for hours, or Eddie Van Halen, or Hendrix, or Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, or Judas Priest, or Iron Maiden on 10 with Marshall stacks. Marshall has absolutely dominated rock and roll. And it's just incredible. I thank you so much for coming up and
It's
doing
there
the
to
show.
thank me. Thank you.
Oh, dude, I love you, dude.
I
And,
love you more. I can't wait to work with you again.
we
Whatever you
will-
want to do, I'm in. You just say it. I'll be there.
I was saying we need to do the 40-year anniversary of Bond and do it at the Forum. LA Forum. Yeah.
See you there and then.
All right, guys. Thanks for
Love
tuning
you
in to
guys.
Let There Be Talk for a great episode of Handmade. Leave a review and subscribe. Also, join my YouTube channel. The channel is Dean Del Rey. If you can't find it, it's in my Twitter bio. I love all you guys. Keep the candles lit.